Hello there. This is Walking with Jesus and Mark, and I believe we are now in, let's see, 16, 17, 18, 19. I think we've done seven. Yes, we are at number 19. Number 19. And we kind of left you on a cliffhanger with Jairus' daughter. We are in Mark chapter 5. I'm Jim Devore, by the way, pastor at Cornerstone Church of Littlerock, California. We are in Mark chapter 5. We are using the Gospel of Mark to get to know Jesus as our Savior and as our Messiah, and also to ask the question, as a follower of Jesus, what should I be doing based on what I'm seeing? So we're gonna do this in kind of skipping format today. We're actually going to leave out the chunk that we talked about yesterday, but we are going to begin in verse 21. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Mark 5. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live. And he went with him, and a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. Verse 25 is our interruption. We spent all our time on that yesterday. The woman with the issue of blood for 12 years gets to this crowd and gets to Jesus and gets healed. Go back to number 18 to hear the story of that. We're now going to pick up the story of Jairus. Okay, so he has just said to the woman in verse 34, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Verse 35, while he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, Do not fear, only believe. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John and the brother of James. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, Talitha cumi, which means, Little girl, I say to you, arise. Immediately the girl got up, began walking, for she was 12 years of age, and they were immediately overcome with amazement. He strictly charged them that no one should know this and told them to give her something to eat. All righty, here we go. So we've got Jairus. He is a ruler of the synagogue, which means he is in the ruling religious class of the Jews, which means he's part of the people that want to get rid of Jesus. So whether his fellow Jews know that he's going to Jesus or not, he doesn't care, because he's got a greater concern, his daughter. His daughter is at the point of death, and he needs the great healer to come and heal her. Well, he's on the way with Jairus. The commotion of the woman with the discharge of blood gets in the way, slows things down as far as Jairus is concerned. And what scares Jairus happens in verse 35. While Jesus is speaking to the woman, there came from the ruler's house someone who said, Your daughter's dead. Why trouble the teacher any farther? It's interesting. Jairus comes to Jesus as the healer. His house help, okay, his servants just refer to Jesus as the teacher, because he hasn't healed anybody important to them yet. Overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, Do not fear, only believe. This man's just been told your daughter's dead. Of course he's going to be afraid. It's too late. If only they could have got there sooner. Jesus says, Do not fear, only believe. What does he ask you to believe? Believe in me. I know you're afraid. I know you think you've lost your daughter. Don't go to that. Okay, don't let that overpower you. Believe. Believe in me. You just saw what I did for this woman, so believe that I can do something for your daughter. A couple of interesting things that takes place after that. A couple of interesting things that take place after this are that Jesus then takes with him only Peter, James, and John. Okay, so only takes, instead of taking all 12 disciples, he only takes 3 with him. Okay, apparently he gets away from the crowd enough to get there. Obviously he has Jairus with him. They arrive at the house. There's a commotion. People are weeping and wailing loudly. They're crying and wailing. So the death has been long enough for the word to spread and the people to come and begin to cry and to mourn alongside the family. Jesus enters this crying and wailing, and what does he say? Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping. Now, their response is rather interesting. They laughed at him. They went from crying to laughing. Some say that's because they were officially paid mourners who had come to make the loud noise of the great loss, and so that they weren't really there out of sentiment, but they were there out of pain, kind of a cultural thing. And so they can immediately laugh at this guy who doesn't know what's going on. It's also kind of that nervous laughing, probably is my guess, is that they are wailing for the loss of a loved one. And this guy comes along and says, she's not dead, she's just sleeping. They're like, what is the matter with you? I mean, you're funny, is that a joke? They don't know what to do with this guy, is basically what's happening here. He puts them all outside. I don't need you guys around. You lack of faith people, just move on. Took the child's father and the mother, those who are with him. So who we got here? We have James and Peter and John, the brother of James. 3, mother and father, they go up into the room. So there are 6 people in the room: Jesus, mom and dad, Peter, James, and John. By the way, throughout Scripture, we see that Peter, James, and John are allowed to go places and brought with Jesus other places that the other disciples don't go. So even though Jesus discipled 12, he also, in the midst of that group, focused on 3. It's a reminder to us of how we should do our own discipleship. I'm not trying to conquer the world. Go after a lot of people, pour into maybe 12 is not a magic number. It wasn't for Jesus. He lost one of them. Okay? The idea is pour into many, but also really pour into just a small amount and really take them with you. That's the other key. Take these people with you. But I digress a little bit from our story here. Okay. All right. He's in the room. Verse 41. Taking her by the hand, he said, Talitha Kumi, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. Okay, we've got a little girl who is at the point of death and then is dead. And all Jesus says is simply says to her is, arise. That means get up. Okay? You're no longer dead. Let's get up. 42. One key word after the first connecting word. And immediately. It's almost like Jesus hasn't finished saying, arise, and immediately the girl got up and began walking. She was 12 years old, Mark tells us. Okay? They were immediately overcome with amazement. No kidding. If you look closely, the word immediately is very popular and common in the book of Mark. Mark kind of likes this idea of immediately this, immediately that, immediately this. He likes how Jesus works and how Jesus moves around. Immediately they were overcome with amazement. Of course they were. What an emotional roller coaster that day. Dad goes out to find the healer because his daughter has been dying for a while now and at the point of death, and his prayers haven't worked and nothing else has worked. Dad finds the healer, gets interrupted by a woman who he would consider unclean and beyond help. The healer stops to heal them, must frustrate Dad, and then while that's finishing up, he's told his daughter's dead. The healer turns to him and says, have hope. He arrives at home to find his daughter is still dead, and then Jesus takes him upstairs, and then suddenly his daughter's alive. Yeah, immediately. No wonder he's overcome with amazement. He doesn't know which emotion to process. What does Jesus tell him? He strictly charges them that no one should know this and told them to give her something to eat. Interesting. He tells the demon-possessed man who's healed, go tell the world. He tells Jairus' daughter and family, tell no one. We don't really need to speculate. We just need to go, Jesus has got a plan. It's greater than our understanding. And let's let that ride out as it needs to ride out. Here's the key. The great healer healed. They were amazed. She was completely healed, up and around and going. And she apparently had been on her sickbed for a while because she woke up hungry. And Jesus was still in the mode of meeting the immediate need. What do we take from this? Well, first, who is Jesus? He is a great healer who is full of compassion and able to see not just the immediate miracle, but other things. Heals her, she arises, give her something to eat. Jesus sees through the phony and the lack of faith when he's got people that move from crying to laughing that aren't willing to trust him. However, okay, he kicks them out, but he brings Jairus along with him. After Jairus' group, after his servants say to him, don't bother the teacher. She's dead. Let's not bother him anymore. And even though Jairus is hurt and lost and wondering, Jesus sees enough faith in him to say, come on. We're going to take that faith. We're going to nurse that. We're going to show you my power. So Jesus will take you where you're at. He's going to see your hypocrisy, by the way, so don't pretend and don't go through the motion if it's just motion and not heart attitude. But if you have heart attitude but only little faith, Jesus is seeing your heart attitude. He'll take you where you're at and open your eyes to what you need to see. So let's do that. Let's trust Jesus for the little things around us. Let's trust Jesus for the big things around us. Let's just simply trust Jesus, even when our emotions and our feelings and our friends and our family and all circumstances around us are saying it's hopeless. Let us trust